Hey guys, today I wanted to tell my birthing story, my delivery story, and also encourage those out there who want to have a baby, who want to get pregnant, but are dealing with having fibroids, or those who are concerned that are currently pregnant and are concerned about having their baby because they once had a fibroid and had surgery. Like me, I had a myomectomy, which is a removal of a fibroid, which is open surgery. I had a myomectomy when I was 20 years old, and I was in college. So I just wanted to share my birthing story also as well after I discuss my fibroid situation and the myomectomy that I had when I was in college. I know it's been like a year since I had the baby. I just want to show you guys the day that I gave birth and the days afterwards and my experiences with having a C-section. So I want to begin first with my fibroid story. I was 19 years old, and I noticed that my belly was hurting. My lower abdomen was hurting, and sometimes it would swell up depending on different activities that I did. And I noticed a little lump, a little hump at the bottom of my belly. I'm like, oh my goodness, like what is this? So I went to my pediatrician because I was still going to my pediatrician, and I was in college, and she gave me a pelvic exam, but didn't notice anything. She didn't notice anything. I'm like, wow, I'm hurting. Like, what's the issue? But she didn't see anything. So months went by, and my stomach was it was getting bigger. So I would say that was maybe sometime in the beginning of 2005. I'm not sure when it started, but I know when the my next semester started in college. I think it was my not my sophomore year. I think it was my junior year of college. And September came around, and I already had my my period in the beginning of that month. I think it was so long ago. And I looked up, and I was bleeding. I'm like, oh, am I having another period this month? And at the time I was really bad with writing down the days, I started my period and the days that I ended my period. So I'm thinking like, maybe I'm starting another period this month. And depending on the month and how if you have a long month or when your period actually happens, it is possible to have 2 periods in 1 month. But days went by, and I'm like, wow, I'm clotting like big clots. It's normal to clot in a period, but I was clotting clots. I was passing clots big as a quarter. Quarters, like nickel to quarter size clots. And so I called, and I was bleeding everywhere. I was bleeding. This is going to be if you're very squeamish, don't watch this video or skip forward to the day I deliver my baby. And I will I will say where that actually starts. But with the fibroids, I had 1 fibroid. So, but at the time I didn't know I had a fibroid. I didn't know what was going on. So I called the on-campus clinic on the the university campus had a campus clinic, and I called them to make an appointment to come in. So I came in, and they asked me to change into a gown. And so as I was pulling my pants down, I just couldn't stop bleeding. Before leading up to going to the clinic, I was bleeding through the sheets on my bed. I was taking a shower, and blood was just running down the tub. And I'm like, wow, this is a problem. What's going on? So when I went there, I just broke down and, cried. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. She says, the nurse said to me that it's okay, it's okay. You might have a fibroid. This is very normal in ethnic women of color, and African Americans. I'm like, oh, fibroid. I didn't think about that. And I was looking back at that time, thinking that my mother suffered with fibroids, but she had fibroids in her fallopian tubes and in her breasts. And my sister also had small fibroids in her uterus, but she was able to have her son, but they were so small they didn't grow, so they just left them there. But anyway, so the clinic called the ER of the local hospital, and the EMS picked me up, shipped me to the ER, and they gave me an ultrasound, a scan of my belly, and hooked me up to an IV because I was losing a lot of fluid, a lot of blood, and that's when they told me, yes, you have a fibroid. And at the, right before this happened, I was looking for a OBGYN, not a new OBGYN, because I was going to a pediatrician, but I was looking for an OBGYN, and I didn't find one, I guess, in time. And so they just told me to see my OBGYN and go from there, because I would have to have surgery to get it removed. And so the ER, the doctor sent me home from the ER, and my sister ended up driving up there because I was sitting in the ER for a long period of time, and they were available, I don't know if they took off work and they came up there to see about me. And at the time, my boyfriend, he wasn't able to get up there, but my mom and my sister came up there, and they took me and they drove me to the grocery store. And I was told to get some food that was high in iron, because I became anemic. My hemoglobin was very low, so I became anemic. So we went to the grocery store to get like some orange juice, some steak, to make some steak. And so I was in the aisle to get some pain medication, because I was in so much pain because I was hemorrhaging. When you hemorrhage, it's like when you're hemorrhaging, your uterus is contracting, and my uterus was contracting over this fibroid. And I later read that these contractions over the fibroid is almost like contractions that you go into when you're about to give birth to a baby. That's what they say. I don't know, but they're pretty painful. So I was in the aisle to get some painkillers, while my sister, my mom went to the food aisle to get some food for me. I think we were almost about to check out, and I'm like, wait guys, I need to get some painkillers, because I'm known to not have any painkillers in my cabinet, because I really don't like taking medication. So I went to the aisle, and I leaned over to rest on the shelves, and the lady next to me said, "Are you okay? You need help?" I'm like, "Yes, I do." And next thing you know, there's paramedics standing over me, and I'm laying on this flat board, which is very uncomfortable. So I passed out in mire. So they sent me back to the ER, and hooked me back up to some IV, which my right arm is where they, usually when I go to the doctor, they usually draw blood from my right arm, because the veins just, pop out, better than my left arm. You can't really find them in my left arm. So they poked me so many times in the ER. I just told the lady to just stop, because she couldn't get to my vein. I just told her, just stop, just use my hand. Use my hand. So that day was a rough day, and that was September of 2005. I just started back, new semester of school. So I ended up finding an OBGYN in the city that I'm from Detroit, in the metro area of Detroit. I went to Michigan State, so that was East Lansing, but I found a OBGYN in the metro area of Detroit because I'm, that's where I'm from. And so when I saw her, she was telling me that, you know what, your fibroid is so big. She kind of equated me to, she said, my fibroid is so big, it looks like I'm carrying, that I'm 3 months pregnant. It's so big, we cannot do a liposcopic procedure on you. We have to cut you open and put you under general anesthesia to get this fibroid like that's this big. She said it was big like a grapefruit. After I had the surgery, she gave me a picture and everything, and it was big like a grapefruit. And so we scheduled my surgery for December during winter break. The end of December, right before Christmas, the 19th. I think I had it on the 19th of December. And so she just told me to get some ibuprofen, 800 milligrams of ibuprofen, and take that. I think I took it multiple times a day, whatever the back of the label said, space it out every 4 hours, every 6 hours, I don't know. So I'm at school trying to focus, cold in my apartment, just hemorrhaging everywhere, going through the overnight pads, the overnight sanitary napkins, the big sanitary napkins. I'm going through multiple of those every day. Probably, I'm not sure, probably 6 pads. I don't know if I could put a number. 6 pads a day. Working a lot. I worked a lot in the cafeteria of my of the dorm that I stayed in my freshman and sophomore year. And so I was just in pain every day. And the 800 milligram of ibuprofen it helped a little bit, but I could have used more. But that was the highest dosage that she would allow me to take, and that's probably the highest dosage that was safe to take. So anyway, from September to December, I was in school and trying to, I was in civil engineering. I majored in civil engineering, and those classes were hard, and I'm trying to focus, and and I'm anemic. But anyway, so December December of 2005, I had my surgery, had open surgery, and it was very successful. But the fibroid was so big, they had to remove a lot of the muscle from my uterus because, unlike having a C-section, you have an object connected to the uterus. And I think the fibroid that I had was on the outside, mostly on the outside. You have the uterus, it was mainly on the outside of the uterus versus the inside of the uterus, which I think if you had to choose between the outside and inside, it's better to have it on the outside of the uterus. I think a little bit was on the inside, but mainly on the outside. So when you have a myomectomy, they have to take off some of the muscle of your uterus. So the doctor warned me, and she said that, you may have miscarriages, you may have premature births, because carrying a baby to full term after having a myomectomy, there's a risk that you might not be able to, because your uterus is expanding so much it might rupture. So she said with that risk of you possibly rupturing your uterus, probably rupturing, you have to have a C-section. And so for years, my mother was like, don't wait too long to have a baby. For years, I had a fear that I was going to either have miscarriages, it was going to be hard for me to get pregnant, because when your egg is dropped from the fallopian tube, it has to attach to the uterus. Like, what if I have too much scar tissue? Will it be able to attach to my uterus? If you look back a couple videos, you'll see, my video about generational curses of fear and witchcraft and all that. I did state that in my, throughout the years, I struggled with like stress and, fear and worrying. So I was just worried about being pregnant and having a baby, and I wanted to have kids. So fast forward to 2014. I took a class at the church I was attending, and during, like, I think after the class, the teaching, we had prayer, and the pastor started to give out a word. And he was saying that, you know, I'm in a room full of people who clearly was not in childbearing age, older people, and I was probably one of the only ones. It was a couple there that was around my age, but they clearly stated that they were having trouble getting pregnant. They were trying. So the pastor was saying there's someone in the class that has a fear of that is scared to get pregnant and haven't even tried. What did he say? He said there's someone in the class who hasn't even tried to get pregnant, who hasn't even started to try to get pregnant, but you are scared that you will have difficulties getting pregnant. And he basically went on saying that, don't worry, you will have kids, you will have children. And I said, you know what, he's talking to me, because I'm the only one that's in childbearing age. Everyone else is like in their 50s and up. So anyway, so after I got married, my husband and I got married in December of 14. In January of 2015, I started hearing baby. I started hearing God say baby. I'm like, oh, I just got married. Can we just wait a little bit? You know, I wanted to get married sooner, and I wanted to wait a couple years after I got married. But I'm like, okay, I'm 29 years old. My husband and I, we've been together for a long time. Like, what are we waiting on? So so God just started tearing down my fears of getting pregnant and, you know, miscarrying and possibly going into labor early. So anyway, I started having visions and dreams of my kids. Let's go get the little baby. Say hi. Say hi, baby. He just woke up, so. Okay, back to what I was saying. So anyway, God started giving me visions about this little baby. And my future kids. And I saw, you know, a boy. So I knew I was going to have a boy first. And I always wanted to have a boy first. So I saw a boy. I remember the first time I saw him, he was smiling, and he had his hands crossed, and he had a sweater on. And I love sweaters. I love just, you know, the preppy look. I love that. And so I saw him, and he was just smiling. Like, my husband and I, we both smile a lot. And so, you know, fast forward, we had this baby. He loves to laugh, and he loves to smile. So anyway, God started giving me visions of my little baby, my kids, and I even heard him before I even got pregnant, or I think when I was pregnant, I heard da 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 da, and when I was pregnant, I heard da 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 da, and I heard him laughing. God was giving me, like, you know, let me hear what my baby sounded like before I even had him. So he was just chipping away all the fears I had. And so when I got pregnant in January of 2016. My husband and I started trying. We started trying in August 2015. Get down, baby. Come on, go play. Oh, okay. Oh, let me hold you? Okay. So no, I don't want to get down. So we started trying in 2006. In August 2015. What do you want? Here. And I got pregnant in January 2016. And so when I became pregnant, I remember my coworker telling me years ago that before him and his wife even started trying for kids, he prayed for his future children. So I began doing that. Up. I began doing that before I got pregnant, and when I was pregnant, I continued to do it. My coworker was, let me go back to what he said. My coworker was telling me that he used to pray for his children and pray for his children's spouses before they even conceive their children, and I think that's awesome. And his kids are married today and have beautiful kids. So anyway, when I got pregnant, I started to pray over my belly and speak God's word over my belly, and just start, saying, I have a child of God. My son is a child of God, full of the gifts of the Spirit, full of the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness, gentleness, self-control. He's a joyous baby, a loving baby, a kind man. I just began to just define scripture and just speak scriptures that I knew over my belly. But that doesn't mean that I never had a bad thought. When I had a bad thought, I had to cast those thoughts down. The enemy will come and just plant, evil thoughts in your head. One day I heard cleft palate, and I just had, thoughts of going into labor early, and it's really, you can have a fear of your uterus rupturing. If your uterus ruptures, there's a possibility that you can lose the baby, and you can lose your life. So I began just to start speaking and saying that I will have this baby full term, and I will have this baby on the date that my C-section day is, on the day that my C-section date is. And just, my baby's healthy, and just, positivity and speaking God's word over my belly. And so beginning of October, I had Maxwell, a little baby. Look at those dimples. Look at those dimples. Look at those dimples. You see those dimples? Say hi. All those teeth. You're 13 months with 8 teeth. And so I was consistent on praying and speaking God's word, declaring and decreeing God's word over my belly. I'm gonna put this up so you guys can see him a little bit more. So anyway, what else I want to say? I do believe that since there's a history of fibroids in my family, I do believe that was generational. I believe that a lot of things will manifest in the body if you're in sin. Being a worry nut, stress nut, just stressed out easily, just not being full of peace. Stop, baby. I believe that those things can manifest in the body. Not saying that this happens for everybody, but considering my history, my family's history, I believe that's the reason why I had a fibroid. But one advice is to, I was going to a doctor regularly, but make sure you have a good doctor who can find those things in time, because if I would have caught it when it was smaller, I could have had a less invasive surgery. And they have way more, they have better technology now. I was watching a video online of a girl who had a surgery where they took a syringe. I think they took a syringe. They took something laparoscopic, not laparoscopic, but they took a syringe. I forgot how they inserted it. I think they went up her birth canal, her vaginal wall into her uterus, and they inserted the fibroid with some kind of solution, some kind of medication in the fibroids. She had multiple fibroids. They dissolved. So they have they have better advances now than they did back, 10 plus years ago. So anyway, now I want to get into my delivery vlog. And okay.